Story 1. I never believed in ghosts. Not really. But that Christmas Eve in 2025, when my wife Elena and I decided to visit her grandmother's grave, something changed forever. We thought it would be peaceful, a quiet moment before the holiday chaos. The old city cemetery was right in the heart of downtown, surrounded by skyscrapers, yet it felt like a forgotten world. As the sun dipped low, casting long shadows, we parked and walked through the iron gates just before closing time. That's when I first felt it, a whisper, so soft I thought it was the wind. "Come closer," it seemed to say. Or maybe it was, "Don't leave me." I shook it off and followed Elena deeper in. The cemetery was historic, full of crumbling tombstones from the 1800s, overgrown with ivy and shrouded in a thick fog that rolled in from the nearby river. The air smelled of damp earth and dead leaves. Elena carried a bouquet of white lilies, her grandmother's favorite. We hadn't visited in years, not since the funeral when Elena was a kid. "She'd like this," Elena said softly, squeezing my hand. I nodded, trying to ignore how empty the place felt, even though the city buzzed just beyond the walls. We found the grave in the older section, a simple stone marked Maria Ruiz, 1920-1987. Elena knelt down, brushing away fallen leaves, and placed the flowers gently at the base. "Hi, abuela," she whispered. "We miss you." I stood beside her, paying my respects in silence. That's when it started, the faint sobbing. It was low at first, like a child crying far away, echoing through the fog-shrouded tombstones. The sound bounced off the stones, making it hard to tell where it came from. "Did you hear that?" I asked Elena, my voice barely above a whisper. She looked up, eyes wide. "Yeah, probably an animal or something, but it grew louder, more human. Heart-wrenching sobs, full of endless pain. We stood slowly, scanning the misty paths. The fog swirled thicker now, hiding the edges of the graves. Then, about 20 feet away, near a cluster of angel statues, we saw her, a woman kneeling by an unmarked plot. She was translucent, like smoke shaped into a person. You could see the tombstones faintly through her body. Her dress was white once, but now tattered and stained, hanging in rags around her thin frame. Long dark hair covered her face as she rocked back and forth, hands clutching the earth. The sobbing came from her, raw and unending, as if she'd been crying for centuries. "Elena!" I breathed, frozen in place. She grabbed my arm tight. "What is that?" We took a step closer, curiosity pulling us despite the fear crawling up my spine. The air grew colder with every move, like stepping into a freezer. The woman didn't look up, just kept mourning, her cries piercing my heart. I felt tears welling in my eyes for no reason, an overwhelming grief that wasn't mine. Sadness for losses I couldn't name, for a life full of regret. "Hello?" Elena called softly. "Are you okay?" The woman paused. Slowly, her head lifted. Her face was pale, eyes hollow black pits, mouth open in a silent scream. No features, just shadows where they should be. Then, as we approached closer, maybe 10 feet away, she faded, like mist dissolving in sunlight. One moment there, the next gone. Only the echo of her sob lingered, fading into the fog. We stood there, breathing hard. "Let's go," I said, pulling Elena back toward the path. But the grief didn't leave. It clung to us, heavy and suffocating. My chest ached with sorrow, memories of loved ones I'd lost flooding in unbidden. Elena was crying openly now, though she couldn't explain why. We hurried to the car as dusk turned to night. The gates were still open, lucky us. Driving home through the city lights, I cranked the heat, but it didn't help. Cold spots bloomed on my skin, icy patches that moved like fingers tracing my arms, my neck. Elena shivered beside me, rubbing her hands. "Do you feel that?" she asked. "Yeah," I whispered, like we're not alone. That night, in our apartment, the cold followed. We'd be sitting on the couch, and suddenly a spot on the sofa would freeze, or in bed, an icy breath on the back of my neck. The grief worsened too. Nightmares of the woman, kneeling forever, calling us back. I'd wake up sobbing, Elena the same. Days passed, but it didn't fade. We researched the cemetery online, found stories of a weeping lady, a mother who lost her child in the 1900s, buried in an unmarked grave, doomed to mourn eternally. People said if you saw her, her sorrow latched on. It's been weeks now. The cold spots still come, especially at night. And sometimes in the mirror, I catch a glimpse of her behind me, translucent and tattered, waiting. The whisper returns too. Come closer. I think she's not done with us. One day we might have to go back to set her free or join her. Story 2. I still don't know why we went in so deep. My wife Sarah thought it would be a fun adventure for the kids. Take pictures, read old gravestones, feel a little history on a crisp autumn afternoon. It was October 31st, Halloween, but we weren't looking for scares. We just wanted something different. The old city graveyard sits like a forgotten island inside a patch of thick urban woods, surrounded by highways and apartment blocks. From the street it looks small, but once you step through the rusted gate, the paths twist and the trees close in, and the noise of the city fades away completely. That should have been our first warning. I remember the exact moment everything felt wrong. We had been walking maybe 20 minutes, the kids running ahead chasing fallen leaves, when the light started to dim faster than it should. The sun was still up, but the canopy above us swallowed it. Sarah called the boys back. Jake was 10, Milo only 6, and we kept going, deeper, following a narrow dirt trail lined with crooked stones. That's when I heard the footsteps behind us. Slow, deliberate, crunching leaves. I turned, expecting another visitor. Instead, I saw him. An old man, tall and thin, dressed in faded overalls and a wool coat that looked like it belonged to another century. He carried an old-fashioned lantern in one hand, the kind with real flame flickering inside glass. His face was sharp, eyes sunk deep, skin like dry paper. He stopped about 15 feet away and just stared. "Daddy, who's that?" Milo whispered, hiding behind my leg. The man didn't smile. He lifted the lantern a little higher so the light caught his face, and his voice came out low and gravelly, like stones rubbing together. "You shouldn't be here," he said. "Not this deep, not this late. Leave before the sun's gone." Sarah stepped forward, always the brave one. "We're sorry. We didn't realize the paths went so far. We'll head back now." He shook his head slowly. "Too many folks think it's safe in daylight. It ain't. Things wake when the dark comes. Go. Now." Jake tugged my sleeve. "Dad, he's creepy." The old man's eyes flicked to Jake, then to Milo, then back to me. Something in that look made my stomach drop, like he knew us, or knew something about us. He took one step closer and I smelled damp earth and something metallic like old blood. "I tried to keep them out," he muttered, almost to himself. "Tried to warn everybody, but they never listen." Then, without another word, he turned and walked into the trees. No sound of footsteps after that. Just gone. Vanished between the trunks like the shadows swallowed him whole. We didn't waste time. We grabbed the kids and hurried back the way we came, hearts pounding. The path seemed longer going out, the trees closer. When we finally reached the gate, the sun was almost down, painting everything blood orange. We piled into the car and drove home in silence, the boys unusually quiet in the back seat. That night, after the kids were asleep, Sarah and I sat at the kitchen table with our laptops. Curiosity wouldn't let go. We searched the name of the cemetery and found old newspaper articles, grainy scans from decades ago. His name was Elias Croft. He'd been the caretaker from the 1950s until 1978, living in a small cottage on the grounds. People said he was quiet, kept to himself, always carried a lantern even in daylight. Then, one winter night, something snapped. Police found his wife and 2 young daughters dead in the cottage, throats cut. Elias was discovered the next morning, hanging from a tree deep in the woods, lantern still burning at his feet. No note, no explanation, just rumors that he'd gone mad, hearing voices from the graves. The articles said visitors sometimes saw him after that, always warning people to leave before dark, always disappearing into the trees. Sarah closed her laptop and looked at me. "We saw a ghost," she said, voice shaking. I wanted to laugh it off, tell her it was some homeless guy or a prank. But I couldn't, because that night, when I went to check on the boys, I noticed something on Milo's bedroom window. A perfect handprint, palm and fingers pressed against the glass from the outside. Too big for a child, too high for anyone standing on the ground. And in the center of the print, a faint smudge, like soot from an old lantern. We never went back to that cemetery. But sometimes, late at night, I wake up to the sound of slow footsteps outside our house, crunching leaves that aren't there. And once, just once, I looked out the window and saw a faint yellow glow moving between the trees across the street, a lantern swinging gently in a hand I couldn't see. He's still trying to warn people, I think, still walking his paths. And I'm terrified that one day we won't listen in time. Story 3. I always thought cemeteries were peaceful places. Quiet, sad, but peaceful. That's why my girlfriend Mia and I picked a sunny Saturday afternoon in spring to visit the old Riverside Cemetery downtown. We wanted to leave flowers on the grave of her little cousin, who died as a baby 20 years ago. Mia never got to meet him, but her family talked about him all the time. She brought a small bunch of daisies and a tiny teddy bear to place there. I carried my phone, recording a short video for her mom back home. Nothing spooky, just a nice, normal thing to do. The cemetery is huge, squeezed between busy streets and tall buildings, but once you walk in, the traffic noise fades. We found the children's section easily. Rows of tiny headstones, some no bigger than a shoebox, covered in faded plastic toys, pinwheels, and stuffed animals left by grieving parents. The sight always hits hard. Mia knelt by the grave, whispering hello to baby Lucas, arranging the flowers and Teddy just right. I stood behind her, filming quietly. That's when I felt it first, a gentle tug on the back of my shirt, like a small hand pulling, wanting attention. I turned around. Nothing, just empty grass and stones. I laughed nervously. Wind, I guess. Mia looked up and smiled, but then her face changed. She reached up and touched her hair. Something just pulled my ponytail. We both froze. The air was perfectly still. No breeze at all. Then we heard it. A soft cry, like a newborn fussing. It came from somewhere to our left, between the graves. We looked. No one. Just toys sitting on the grass. Another cry, farther away this time, then closer. And another. Different babies, overlapping, some whimpering, some full-on wailing. My skin crawled. "Mia," I whispered. "Let's go." But she couldn't move yet. She was staring at the teddy we'd just placed. Its head had turned slightly, facing us directly now. I swear I hadn't touched it. That's when the tugging got worse. My sleeve yanked hard, almost pulling me off balance. Mia gasped. Her hair lifted like fingers were running through it, twisting strands. We backed away from the grave, holding each other. Invisible hands brushed our arms, our legs, cold little touches everywhere. It felt like dozens of tiny children reaching up from the ground, wanting to be picked up, wanting us to stay. Then the whispers started. Soft at first, like wind through leaves, but clearer every second. "Mama!" Play. A pause. Then, clear as day, "Mia." She went white. That was my name. Another voice, higher. "Stay." And mine. "Don't leave us." The voices came from empty air, from behind stones, from under the ground. baby cries mixed with the words until it sounded like a nursery full of lost children begging. We ran. We didn't stop until we reached the main path, hearts pounding, looking back at the children's section. It looked normal again, quiet, sunny, toys still. But we could still hear faint whimpers carrying on the air. In the car, shaking, I remembered I'd left my phone recording the whole time. I stopped the video and played it back, expecting just our voices and footsteps. The footage showed exactly what we saw: empty graves, toys, us placing flowers. But the audio, oh God. Under our talking, faint at first, baby cries, then whispers, clear ones we hadn't noticed in the moment. A tiny voice, hold me, another, don't go. Then, right as we backed away, a chorus of small voices screaming, not crying, screaming in pain or anger or loneliness. High-pitched pleas overlapping. Mama, stay, play with us. Don't leave. The loudest one, chillingly clear, come back. We heard our own names repeated over and over, getting angrier each time. I turned it off. Mia was crying silently beside me. We drove home without speaking. That night, we listened again, hoping we'd imagined it. We hadn't. The EVPs were unmistakable. Dozens of child voices captured on a simple phone recording, voices that weren't there when we stood among the graves. We never went back to Riverside Cemetery. We deleted the video eventually, but I still hear those whispers sometimes when the house is quiet, especially at night when everything else is asleep. Tiny hands brush against my skin in the dark. Soft voices call our names from empty rooms. And every year, around the anniversary of that visit, a new small teddy bear appears on our doorstep. Clean, new, with a little tag that reads, "Play with me." We throw it away every time. It always comes back. Story 4. We never should have spread that blanket so close to the fence. My husband Mark said Greenwood Cemetery had the best view of the city skyline at sunset, and the kids, Lila 8, Ben 5, were excited for a picnic dinner under the trees. It was a warm September evening, the kind where the air smells like cut grass and barbecue from nearby apartments. Greenwood sits right in the middle of the city, a huge green patch with old mausoleums and tall stone walls. Everyone knows the stories. Bodies moved in the night, strange lights, cults. But we laughed them off. Just urban legends, Mark said, unpacking sandwiches. Perfect spot for a family adventure. We ate near the edge, backs against the iron fence that separates the cemetery from the park strip. The kids ran around chasing fireflies while the sun sank, turning everything golden, then pink, then purple. By twilight, the city lights started blinking on beyond the graves, and the traffic noise hummed like a distant ocean. It felt peaceful. Too peaceful. That's when Lila stopped playing. She stood staring deeper into the cemetery, past the first row of headstones. "Daddy, who are those people?" I followed her gaze. At first I saw nothing, just shadows between the big stone tombs. Then shapes moved, tall figures in dark robes, hoods pulled low, maybe 6 or 7 of them. They stood in a loose circle around an old grave, heads bowed. One held something long, a shovel, and started digging slowly, the scrape of metal on dirt barely reaching us over the city sounds. Mark stood up. Probably groundskeepers working late. But groundskeepers don't wear robes, and they don't move like that. Silent, smooth, like they're floating an inch above the ground. Ben tugged my sleeve. "Mommy, they're singing." I listened. Under the car horns and sirens, there was a low chant, words I couldn't make out, rising and falling together. My skin prickled. The figures kept digging. Dirt flew in slow arcs. Another one placed something small and white on the ground. Candles? Bones? I couldn't tell. Then shadowy silhouettes broke away from the group, slipping quick and quiet between the mausoleums. They darted from stone to stone, too fast to be normal people, like dark smoke taking shape and vanishing again. A sudden heavy dread dropped over me, The kind that makes your chest tight and your legs weak. Mark felt it too. I saw his face go pale. Lila started crying softly, not loud, just scared tears. Ben hid behind me. "We need to go," I whispered. We packed fast, hands shaking, throwing everything into the basket. The chanting grew louder, though still muffled by distance and city noise. When I glanced back, tiny lights floated above the circle, pale blue orbs hovering like fireflies, but bigger, drifting in slow patterns over the open grave. We hurried to the car parked just outside the fence on the street. Mark turned the key. Nothing, not even a click. The dashboard stayed dark. "Come on," he muttered, trying again. Dead. Headlights off, engine silent. The battery had been fine an hour ago. That's when the floating lights changed direction. They moved toward the fence, toward us, bobbing gently between the tombstones, like they were following an invisible path. More appeared, dozens now, glowing softly, leading deeper into the cemetery instead of out. Lila whimpered. "They want us to follow." "No," I said, voice sharp. "We're leaving." Mark popped the hood, checked connections. Everything looked normal. Still nothing. Phones had barely one bar. Calls dropped. The city was all around us, but we felt completely alone. The robed figures stopped digging. As one, they turned their hooded heads toward us. I couldn't see faces, just darkness inside the hoods, but I felt them watching. One raised an arm slowly, pointing, not at the car, but past it, deeper in, where the lights floated invitingly. A cold sweat broke over me. The silhouettes flitted faster now, circling closer to the fence, darting behind stones like they were playing a terrible game of hide-and-seek. Mark slammed the hood. "We walk. It's only a few blocks to the main road." We grabbed the kids and started down the sidewalk away from the gate. But every street lamp we passed flickered and died behind us. The floating lights rose higher, visible above the wall now, trailing us like a glowing parade. Half a block later, the car started on its own. Headlights flashed once. The engine turned over, idling quietly. We ran back, piled in, and Mark peeled out without a word. In the rearview mirror, I saw the lights sink slowly back into the cemetery, winking out one by one. The robed figures stood still, watching us go. We never picnicked there again. But sometimes, driving past Greenwood at night, the kids point out the window and say they see little blue lights floating above the graves. And once, parked at a red light nearby, our car died again, just for a minute, long enough for me to glance over the wall and spot dark shapes moving between the mausoleums, digging quietly under the cover of city noise. Waiting. Story 5. I still wake up some nights tasting fog and hearing gates clang shut behind me. It was last summer, a humid July evening, when my boyfriend Alex and I decided to explore Laurel Hill Cemetery after work. It's this massive old place smack in the city. Hundreds of acres of hills, statues, and twisted paths, surrounded by traffic and buildings. But once you're inside, you forget the world exists. We'd been dating only a few months, and thought a sunset walk among the graves would be romantic. Stupid idea. We entered around 6. Plenty of daylight left, or so we thought. The gates were wide open, no signs about closing times. We wandered deeper, holding hands, reading faded names on stones, laughing at the creepy angels staring down at us. The paths curved like a maze, splitting and looping through groves of ancient trees. By 7:30, the sun was low, painting everything orange, and we realized we hadn't seen another person in over an hour. "Let's head back," Alex said, checking his phone. No signal. The map app just spun. We turned around, or thought we did, but the path didn't look familiar. Trees thicker, stones older, moss covering everything. We walked faster. Then we heard it. Heavy iron gates slamming somewhere in the distance. A final echoing clang that made my stomach drop. "They can't close with people inside," I said, trying to sound calm. But they had. We hurried toward where we thought the entrance was. Nothing, just more graves, more hills. Dusk fell quick under the canopy, turning the air blue and cold. Panic started creeping in. That's when we saw her, a little girl maybe 7 or 8, standing at the edge of a clearing. She wore a pale dress that caught the last light, almost glowing white. Her hair was long and dark, face turned away. She didn't move, just waited. "Hey," Alex called softly. "Sweetie, are you lost too?" She turned then and smiled. Small, sad, but kind. Then she beckoned with one hand and started walking away down a narrow path we hadn't noticed. "She knows the way out," I whispered. Relief flooded us. We followed. The girl stayed just far enough ahead, always visible, never looking back. Her bare feet made no sound on the gravel. We called thank yous, asked her name, but she never answered. The path twisted downhill, past crumbling mausoleums and sunken plots. Fog rolled in thick from the ground, swallowing our ankles. After what felt like 20 minutes, Alex frowned. "This stone, I remember this stone, the one with the broken wing." He was right. We'd passed that weeping angel statue twice already. "We're going in circles," I said, voice shaking. The girl kept walking, faster now, dress fluttering though there was no wind. We stopped. "Hey, wait! Which way is the gate?" She paused at a fork, pointed left, then vanished between the trees. We went left. The path opened into a section we definitely hadn't seen before. Overgrown, forgotten. Graves from the 1800s, names worn away. And then, through the fog, we saw lights. Headlights. An old car sat parked on what looked like a dirt road cutting through the cemetery. An antique black sedan, shiny like it was new, but the model was from the 1930s. No one inside. Engine off, just sitting there. "What the hell?" Alex breathed. Beyond it, half hidden in mist, stood a house. A full Victorian house, porch and all, right in the middle of the graves, windows glowing faintly yellow. It hadn't been there before. I swear it hadn't. We backed away. The girl appeared again, farther down the road, waving us toward the house. "No way," I said, pulling Alex the other direction. We ran, paths blurred, fog thicker, and everywhere things appeared and disappeared. Another old car, this one with doors open. A horse-drawn hearse parked silently, a cluster of small wooden houses like a tiny ghost village, windows lit, curtains moving as if someone watched. Every turn brought us back to the same broken angel statue. The girl waited each time, patient, pointing deeper in. Hours passed, or minutes. Time felt broken. My phone died. Alex's too. Cold soaked through our clothes. We shouted for help until our voices cracked. Nothing answered except distant echoes. Finally, exhausted, we sat on a bench near an empty mausoleum. That's when we heard keys rattling. A real person, a night security guard with a flashlight, found us just before dawn. "You're lucky," he said, leading us out a side gate we hadn't known existed. "People get turned around in here all the time. Gates lock at 8 sharp. We never saw the girl again, or the cars, or the houses." The guard said there were no roads deep enough for vehicles in that section, no buildings at all. But sometimes, driving past Laurel Hill at night, I see a small white figure standing near the fence, waving slowly. And once, parked at a stoplight nearby, an old black sedan pulled up beside us, empty, windows fogged, engine silent. It followed us 3 blocks before vanishing at the next turn. We don't take evening walks anymore, and if we ever hear gates closing behind us, we run the opposite way. Story 6. I've always hated above-ground cemeteries, all those stone boxes stacked like ovens under the sun. But my wife Clara insisted we take the kids to St. Louis No. 3 in New Orleans last December, right before Christmas. She wanted our 2 little ones, Emma, 7, and Noah, 4, to see where her great-grandparents rested. "It's tradition," she said. "They need to know their roots." The place is called a City of the Dead for a reason. Rows and rows of whitewashed tombs, narrow alleys between them, crosses everywhere. Even in daylight, it feels like walking through a ghost town built for the buried. We went on a gray afternoon, the sky low and damp. The kids held our hands tight as we wandered the brick paths, reading faded names. Clara carried flowers for the family vault, a tall marble oven with her ancestors' names carved deep. Emma asked quiet questions. Noah just stared wide-eyed at the statues of angels and lambs. We found the child's plot by accident. It was tucked in a back corner, smaller than the others, almost hidden behind taller tombs. A tiny vault no bigger than a suitcase, decorated with faded plastic roses and a cracked porcelain doll someone had left years ago. The name read, Marie Duval, 1898-1904. Only 6 years old. Clara knelt to say a soft prayer. The kids stood close to me. That's when the air changed. 1 second, it was muggy Louisiana warmth. The next, an icy blast hit us like someone opened a freezer door. My breath fogged. Goosebumps raced up my arms. Emma shivered hard. "Daddy, it's cold," she whispered. Noah buried his face in my leg. The cold spot stayed right there, circling the little tomb. It moved with us when we stepped back, like an invisible bubble of winter. Then we saw her. She stood between two larger vaults, half hidden in shadow. A woman in an old-fashioned dress, pale gray, long sleeves and high neck. Her hair was dark and pinned up, face young but tired. She held something bundled close to her chest, a baby, wrapped in a blanket so thin it looked like mist. The child didn't move. Her eyes locked on us. Not angry, not scary at first, just mournful. Deep, endless sadness pouring out like she'd cried every tear for 100 years and still had more. Clara noticed next. "Who?" she started, but the woman raised one finger to her lips. "Shh." Emma tugged my hand. "She's looking at Noah." It was true. Those sorrowful eyes stayed on our little boy, soft and protective, like a mother watching her own child play too close to danger. Noah peeked out and waved shyly. The woman tilted her head, almost smiled, then looked at me. The message was clear: keep him safe. The cold grew sharper, biting through our coats. Frost formed on the bricks near the child's tomb, white spider webs spreading fast. The woman took one silent step forward, still cradling the bundle. The baby's blanket shifted, and for a second I saw a tiny gray face. Eyes closed, too still. Clara grabbed the kids and backed away. We should go, but the woman shook her head slowly, not angry, warning. Her free hand lifted, palm out. "Stop. Or maybe go." I couldn't tell. Her mouth moved, no sound, but I read the shape. Mine. Noah reached toward her. "Pretty lady." The cold surged, knocking the breath from my lungs. The woman's eyes filled with fresh tears that didn't fall. She pressed the bundle tighter, turned sideways like shielding it from us, and faded into the wall of the tomb behind her. Just dissolved. The frost melted as fast as it came. Warm air rushed back in. We left quickly after that, hearts pounding, flowers forgotten on the ground. The kids were quiet the whole drive home. That night, Noah had a fever that came out of nowhere. Emma woke screaming from nightmares about a sad lady looking for her baby. We looked up the name later. Marie Duval died of yellow fever in 1904. Her mother, Elise, died 3 days later, holding Marie's newborn brother, who never took a breath. Both buried in the same tiny vault. No one left to visit them. Sometimes now, when the house is still, I feel that sudden pocket of cold drift through a room. Emma says she sees a lady in gray standing at the foot of Noah's bed, watching him sleep with those same mournful eyes, protective, loving, but terribly sad. She never comes closer. She just watches. And every December, a single faded plastic rose appears on our porch. No note, no wind to blow it there. I throw it away. It always comes back. For more stories like this, share and subscribe Goofy Horror.